The Mammoth try to bounce back after a loss to Tampa on the road at Buffalo to start an important four-game road swing.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined by longtime team analyst Robyn Leaño, and together we're the dynamic duo that brings you the Locked On Mammoth podcast each and every single day. Thanks for joining us and making us your first listen when it comes to the Utah Mammoth hockey team. We're going to talk about the loss to Tampa Bay on Sunday, leading into really bookended by these four-game road swings, and it starts Tuesday as you're catching this in Buffalo. Road Warriors last time out, a very good road trip for the Mammoth. Yes, a disappointing loss at home, but now Robyn, another critical swing, and this one a little further away from home, takes him out east, and there's going to be more travel involved. However, I still think Utah can come out above 500 on this trip and cement themselves a little bit further into that top three in the Central.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel like this is a really good opportunity for the Mammoth to kind of show that what the beginning of the season isn't a fluke, that they really can play this well on the road, and that they're this good of a team. Yeah, there were a couple of losses in there. Right? We talked about the Edmonton loss. The loss to Tampa Bay kind of stung a little bit, especially at being at home. But, at the same time, Tom, we've already talked about it. We already know what this team is. They're not going to win them all, right? It's not like I was, the joke I always said, yeah, this team's not going to go like 80-2. There's going to be some losses in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would love to see them go 80-2, but that would also be historic in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a cool thing to talk about for us, though. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time, by the way. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Robyn, I really didn't want them to lose that Sunday game at home.
Yeah.
Because they came off that road trip. They played so well. Now, look, you knew they were going to be tired coming off the road trip, but it's their one game in 9 that was at home at Delta Center. And look, Tampa's a good team. And it was a close game, but in the end, they don't get that win. And I kind of feel like those are 2 points lost that really, boy, I hope they just don't come back to haunt them later in the year.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people can chalk it up to yet another second period nap. In this case, it didn't lead up to like 4 goals against, right? But in the same vein, it was a quote second period nap because this team just looked kind of dead. It looked like their offense wasn't going for that period. And you and I, Tom, have talked about that numerous times of how much it can affect the team. Yeah, they did try to bounce back in the third, but at that point, it just didn't feel like they were it was enough.
Yeah, and you kind of get that feeling after the Gensel goal, which made it 3-2. And this is residual from last year, Robyn, but I have this still. I have that little bit of creep in the back of my mind where I'm like, oh, here we go again. Like, and I can't stop it. I can't help it, right? Whenever I see that happen, I'm like, oh, no, come on. And I know it's from last year, but it's still there. And I still have that little bit of creep. So to me, what that says is they haven't played their way around that yet to eliminate that in the back of my mind. And I think that that's an important distinction because when I feel like they've turned the corner as a team, when they give up a late lead like that, or they didn't give up a lead, but it was tied and then they fall behind. When I don't feel that way anymore, when I instead feel confident, I'm like, all right, we're going to tie this back up. I think that's when I will really believe the Mammoth have fully turned that corner.
And, to the Mammoth's credit, they have been getting better. There were moments where we felt that way, but they did get back in the game. But there still are some flaws in the team that we're, that is quite apparent. But all in all, Tom, I still think this is a much better team than last year. It's already very apparent on that. I feel like, yes, it's still very early, so there's still a lot to be told, but I think the signs are still good early on. Some mistakes are still being made, some basic fundamental mistakes, but I feel like it's still less so than what we saw at this time last year.
Oh, I definitely think they're better than last year. Absolutely. The record shows it. A lot of the stats back that up.
There's
And
something I want to show later that someone put up from JFresh. I'm not sure if you got a chance to see it, where it showed like teams over the years and where they are from underperforming to being outscored to outscoring and overperforming. Where the Mammoth includes the Coyotes years, from like 22, 23. They were like, it's like a linear line from bad to good. It's like you can just see how much they've gotten better over the years. And this year it shows how much of a jump up they are from last year. And again, yes, it is still early, but that's a good sign. I'm going to bring it up when I get a chance, maybe later this week, Tom, but I liked it.
Well, and it is still early, and we're going to talk about how upside down the Central feels right now. In a lot of ways, the Central just is kind of bananas if you look at the standings, and we are going to talk about that later on. But just before we leave the Tampa game here, again, it's hard for me right now to shake the feeling that they gave away those points. I feel like that's a game you've got to win. But Robyn, I also, as you said earlier, I know they're not going 80-2. This is my thing, and I think this is part of why I had that little creeping sensation too, is last year I felt like they should have had more points at home. Delta Center should be a bigger home ice advantage. And early this year, I felt like they had they changed that, right? I mean, it's not the fans' fault. That building is nuts. It's a great place to watch a game. It's loud. Everybody's into it. But I think that's part of it, is until they win those games and they beat teams that, look, at this point, I feel like they should be even with Tampa Bay. That's an equal team coming in. The home team should win that game. And I think that was maybe part of it too, a little bit in the back of my head. I was thinking, man, you got to win that game at home.
I mean, you make a good point, because why do we all think that analytics people actually weight things differently, weight their analytics differently on venue adjustment, right? They actually do a venue adjustment because the home team should, in theory, be performing better, so it's weighted as so.
Well, and that's and we're going to look at Buffalo here in a minute. That's kind of one of the things that when you come into a team like Buffalo, who they're not sub 500, but there's a lot of very average teams in the East, of which Buffalo is one. And Robyn, it's been a long time, and I say this with all due respect, because again, this is the hometown team I grew up rooting for, but it's been a long time since anybody didn't want to go play in Buffalo. The crowds still aren't back. It's still kind of a quiet building. That crowd can turn on the team fairly quickly. So I think this is kind of a nice soft landing to start your next road trip. The home ice is not as important, I think, for Utah in this one coming into Buffalo. So plus there's a couple of big storylines here as far as Old Sabres versus Old Mammoth. So I think that's going to be fun too. We have to talk about that, right? I know the Donors want us to talk about that.
Oh yeah, they surely do.
You know what's really funny though is Rob Ray, who used to play in the NHL and was a tough guy for a very long time. Man, I wish I had a nickel for every time he calls Josh Shane. I really do, because it's he played against Shane Doan, and so Josh eventually just calls him Doan. Because he's just struggling to get it. And I'm like, I hear you, buddy. I understand. I know. So I get that. That's kind of funny. But Robyn, this is going to be interesting, because I really feel like everybody who has switched sides in this whole thing, because Kesselring's healthy now and he's finally playing for the Sabres, Doan for the Sabres, and then you got Peterka for Utah. I feel like they all have a point to prove, don't you?
I would think so, right? And that's interesting, because I think people are starting to want to judge the trade this early. And I'm like, so far, both teams have been beneficial, but now that they're going against each other, Is there really going to be an actual judgment here?
Maybe. And it's 2-for-1. I mean, I judged the trade in the summer and I told Buffalo they got dragged, but
Yeah.
because it does. It looks great for
I
Utah.
mean, Doan's also been great though.
He really has. No, he's gotten off to a very good start, and I tip my cap to him because maybe he did need a change of scenery. Maybe that, and who knows? This is not something he might even acknowledge or even knew was there. But Robyn, when your name's Doan and you're playing in that organization, that's a heavy weight. That's a really.
I mean, maybe it's a complicated situation because he had that he went off in the last games in Arizona for good reason. Probably maybe there was some knowledge that could be the last games in Arizona at the time, even then. But I feel like maybe like there could have been a side effect of the quote relocation, because at that point these are still the same guys, but also like just up and moved from what was his hometown.
I'm not even sure they trade him if they're still in Arizona.
No, if they're in Arizona, they don't trade him. That's like, that would be like the amount of pushback you would get from your fans. You would get so much hate, like an incredible amount of hate for allowing that to happen.
Yep, it's like the old Patrick Waugh goes to the Colorado Avalanche, but if they were still the Quebec Nordiques, there's no way Patrick Waugh goes to the Quebec Nordiques. It's just no way. Like, that trade doesn't happen. So, and people may think we're overstating that, but no, that's a thing. There's a lot of pressure politically and otherwise.
The Doan name just will carry so much in Arizona and continues to carry so much in Arizona, and will for a long time.
It absolutely will. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about Buffalo and get into the Sabres preview. And I want to talk about the surprising Central, because when you take a step back and you look at the Central Division standings right now, there are some things that I think are a little upside down, and it's important that we talk about this. And today's show is brought to you by Monarch. Look, let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface, whether it's on your laptop or your phone, or in my case, tablet. It did help me organize my accounts. It definitely helped me track my spending, because having everything right there in one place in front of you and no spreadsheets involved, which is great. You can review everything, whether you have a partner, a financial planner, you can see shared goals, and you can make better financial decisions. And when that happens, then you don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use our code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño. This is Locked On Mammoth. Hey, if you're still here and you like what you hear, please subscribe. Doesn't cost you a penny. Just get on there, give it a click, and get on board with us as we ride this thing here throughout what's a very promising season right now for the Utah Mammoth, and they're back on the road again. Robyn, we talked about how well they played on the road in the last road trip, 3-1, pretty darn impressive, with especially that win, I thought, over Winnipeg. They looked very good in that game. Yeah, they dropped the Edmonton game, and now they lost to Tampa Bay, but going right back out on the road for an Eastern swing that is kind of interesting to me, because, as I mentioned, starting off in Buffalo here, and then they go right back-to-back to Toronto on Wednesday. So that's a tough back-to-back. It's kind of an easy start in Buffalo, tough to go to Toronto on a Wednesday. Then they got 2 days off, and they play Saturday night in Montreal, which is an absolute showcase game. And then another back-to-back sees them play Sunday in Ottawa. So this is not an easy swing with two back-to-backs, although the travel's not bad. From Buffalo to Toronto, if they bus, it's an hour and a half. If they fly, it's like 30 minutes. And then going from Ottawa to Montreal is about the same. It's a really short trip. So that's not too bad, at least.
Yeah, I mean, they still got to clear customs, but
Yeah. But you clear customs on the plane, though. So what they do is they go through here. I'll tell you a little story from my time in the NHL. When you're on your charter, you get on the plane, and when you're in the air flying over, they hand you a customs form to fill out, and you go through anything to declare, which of course you don't. You're coming in basically with your suitcase. Anything to declare no, you go through. You have to turn in your customs card, and then an agent goes through the plane, and they may or may not talk to you or whatever, but it's nothing in depth, and they basically ask for your IDs, and then they take your card, your customs card, and that's it. Then you deplane, you get on your bus, and you go to your hotel. So it's not that bad.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly quick. It's not, if you've ever done a border crossing, especially if you've done a land crossing and sat in a line of cars for an hour or two, different. It's just different.
Yeah, I've done a land crossing across the border once, and it took a long time.
Yeah. The other thing too is when you're going into Canada, it's easier. And then when you're in Canada, you don't even have to do the flight screening like you do in the United States. So when they fly from Toronto to Montreal to Ottawa, what they will do is post game in Toronto, they will get on the bus without having to screen. They will go right to the Toronto airport. The bus rolls up to the plane. The door opens. You go up the steps on the plane and take off. So, yeah, because you're a hockey team and they trust you. So, yeah, I mean, essentially that's what it boils down to. But yeah, it's different up there. And then, so that'll be the easy flight. But then when they are ready to leave Ottawa
and come
they
back,
have to go through that whole screening process again. Yes. And go through customs again and all of that. They'll have to do that to get on in Ottawa and then fly back home. So it'll be a little different.
Interesting.
There you go. There's a little peek behind the curtain from Tom's time in the NHL. So, and for those of you who are new, the everydayers certainly know this, but I spent 5 years calling games for Nashville before moving on over to ESPN Radio for a couple of years. So
Tom's been around.
Yes, that is true.
Nashville
10 states and counting, Robyn.
Yeah, so like what? Like at least since Nashville, what you had like Indianapolis, Arizona. I know you had some time covering Vegas. You went to Georgia.
Yep. I am the Johnny Cash song. I've been everywhere, man. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Let's climb through the minors, and you move around, and people. Every time I tell people, because now I'm on, this is state number 10, and every time I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, military." I'm like, "Nope, sports."
Yeah. Especially sports broadcasting, because they.
And I'm probably not done yet. I'm probably not done yet. I just awful lot of moving around, but what are you gonna do? So, all right. So taking a look there, I wanted to talk real quick before we go to the break here, because I do want to get to the surprising central, but I want to talk about Alex Lyon for the Buffalo Sabres. Mm-hmm. Came in, was supposed to be a backup to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, or UPL, as he is much more commonly known in Buffalo. Then UPL gets hurt in training camp. So the Sabres actually went out and even signed Alex Georgiev as an insurance policy. Georgiev was terrible in training camp, and so he never made the opening night roster. Lyon was the opening night goaltender. Then they claimed another goaltender off waivers. Lyon has played very, very well, Robyn, and now that UPL's back, it's expected that the tandem will be UPL and Lyon. However, he's played so well, it is possible that he may have stolen the starting job in the meantime. So if you think it's going to be an easy, 2 points in Buffalo, that may not be the case. They are getting some goaltending right now, and it's helping them stay afloat.
I never consider a team an easy 2 points. Even when you're playing a team like I mentioned, against earlier this season, Tom, the game against San Jose. Even then, I'm like, yes, San Jose is a worse team. They are not a good team, but you need to prove that you are a better team. You need to actually throttle. And that's why I said if Mammoth didn't put up 6 points, 6 goals in that game, I would have been disappointed. This is a different situation. I'm not going to say the Mammoth need to put up 6, but they do need to prove it. They do need to prove that they are the better team because on paper, they really should be. Speaking of which, by the way, HSC NHL.com writers just recently put the Mammoth as number 4 in their Super 16 power rankings last week.
Well, I mean, that was the strength of that road trip. That did a lot to convince people that they're a good team right now. So that's why this road trip is so important. And they also got to
keep that going. They have to keep that going.
They do. And every team on this trip is tough for a different reason. And Buffalo and like Lyon, you look at his record, he's 3-4-2, but he's got a 2.9 goals against and a 912 save percentage. If Buffalo gets him some run support, that's going to be a tough game to win. Toronto is supposed to be an NHL superpower, even though they're struggling to play like it right now. Quite honestly, they're barely in front of the Sabres, which is wild to me. But Toronto's 6-5-1, but they're still dangerous because they're the Leafs. And then Ottawa is just barely above Toronto in the standings. You know who the best team on this trip is? Montreal. Montreal's 9-3 to start the year. They are ripping up the Atlantic. That's a young team that has arrived ahead of schedule. But the point is, Robyn, everybody thought Ottawa was a playoff team this year. Everybody thinks Toronto's a playoff team this year, and they didn't give Buffalo much credit. And then Montreal is, in fact, on fire. This is a really difficult 4-game stretch.
It really is, and this is why it's so much more important that the Mammoth need to play their game and focus on the forecheck that made that last road trip just so perfect.
Yeah.
Right, because they had that level of forecheck. They played through the boards, they played the physicality, and they were able to get the high danger changes. Not a lot of high danger chances than you and I would have liked. Right, we would have wanted more high danger chances, but they played better. There was a step up from what we saw previously, and they need to do that. They need to play that game. It's a couple of different things. It's play that game. The pickup line needs to stay hot, and for the everydayers, you already know, and you'll all appreciate this one because you all tend to agree with us on this one. At least most of you do. Liam O'Brien in the lineup.
I got ripped in a Facebook forum about that. I was told that I didn't know my you-know-what from a hole in the ground. People vehemently disagreed with me on that.
Wow, okay. Interesting.
So I will die on that hill, though. I think they're a better team with him in the lineup.
Well, like it's interesting because is Liam O'Brien a great hockey player? I mean, he's in the NHL. Well,
he's an NHL caliber player.
He's an NHL caliber player, but he's not a great hockey player. I mean, he provides the depth that the Utah Mammoth need, and he's serviceable, right? He's got some good qualities, but there are some things that he does that makes you want to shake your head. But what he does bring is an intangible that it's that heart in your sleeve that he brings the fire, he brings the energy, and sometimes you need an energy guy on your team, and people sometimes just write that off.
You know what, Robyn? That sounds like an episode. That sounds like it might be an episode. We should just talk about Liam O'Brien. I feel like that's an episode.
I like it.
Yeah. Throw your thoughts down in the comments, and we may do just that. So, all right, Robyn, let's talk about this surprising central topsy-turvy crazy division because there's a lot of meat on that bone.
And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine some live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. I know I love using FanDuel for just about everything I use. Sometimes I'll just do some same-game parlays in there. Sometimes I will just mix things up, just do however many games are going on that day, and just do a 15-leg parlay. Those are my favorite, by the way. Just going crazy. It just makes every game that just more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprising fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is just cheer on for your team. And that's where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives the fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I know if you're taking a look at Mammoth games coming up, you might want to take a look. All right, let's see the best view what I can find, or let's see if I can find some good deals. Game Time will help you find those. You can either find those all-in prices where it tells you no hidden fees at checkout. It'll tell you, hey, this is what you see, this is what you pay. Plus, with their zone deals, you pick the section, and Game Time will pick a seat for you, and you can save big. Sometimes you can even get a ticket for under $25. That's actually an insane deal right there. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go.
And welcome back. Locked On Mammoth, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño. Hey, we're having a great time talking hockey. Hope you're enjoying the show. Tell your friends if you do. Don't be afraid to smash that like button down there. Anytime you can share the show with your friends, it definitely helps us out. And you know what? It also helps the algorithm know that you love great hockey content and you are looking for more of it. So that also works on the YouTube side as well. Plus, we're available anywhere you get your podcasts. Robyn, what's going on in the Central? Have you looked at the standings? I mean, seriously, folks, if you haven't looked at the standings, and we're recording this on a Monday and dropping it Tuesday morning, so there may be a slight shuffle. However, top three in the Central: Colorado, Winnipeg, Utah. And Colorado, by the way, is 7-1-5. 5 overtime points and 1 regulation loss. That's wild. I wonder if those 5 points are going to haunt them at the end of the year. But Robyn, Dallas is top 4, like I think pretty much everybody expects them to be. Here's what I can't get over. I can't get over Chicago and Nashville at 13 and 12 points respectively are above St. Louis and Minnesota. Minnesota's got 11 points and St. Louis only has 8.
Man, I really need to listen to some more episodes from Haley Taylor-Simon to see what is going on in St. Louis, because, oh, my God.
She was not confident. She was cocky before the season started about how good this team was going to be. I want to know what's going on in St. Louis because she was fired up. She's like, they're going to be great. Here's why. Can't wait. And I was like, geez, maybe I should be more worried about St. Louis than I am because I'm like, okay, I missed something.
But something just hit. I mean, you're right. It's absolutely crazy. Like, it just in general, things being all over the place. Because, I mean, the Avalanche, like one of those 5 overtime losses, we're just San Jose. Like, I watched that game, right? And I was like, okay, I know what's gonna what's gonna end up, but I'm gonna see this game, see how it goes out, and I'm like, wait a minute, did San Jose just beat Colorado? What?
And all of those teams, Robyn, that we just mentioned from Chicago on down, they're very middling records. 5-4-3 for Chicago, 5-6-2 for Nashville, 4-6-3 for Minnesota, and St. Louis is 3-7-2. No one in that group strikes fear into my heart right now.
Oh, and honestly, that's what's absolutely crazy. And this really shows where the Mammoth are, because like they are hanging with the top 3 right now. They are in 3rd place right now in the division, and it feels like that's their spot based off how they've been playing. It feels like that's their spot.
I think if they have a consistent, and of course that's a huge if, but if they have a consistent season, they easily could be the 3rd place team when it's all said and done. Dallas is 6-3-3. here's the interesting thing. Remember how I said I wanted them to win more games and not so much push them to overtime and get the single point? They're 8-4-0. Winnipeg is 9-3-0. And then, of course, Colorado's that weird 7-1-5. But now the Utah, out of those fours, okay, this is where they need to turn that into a 2-2 as opposed to a 4-0, because then instead of 4 losses and 0 overtime points, if you get 2 losses and 2 overtime points, then you're even a little further up in the standings. And so that is where I think they need to make that little extra push.
Yeah. Real quick side note, because I have the entire Western Conference standings up on here. It's split by division. I'm actually a low-key surprised that the Ducks are 7-3-1 in the first in the Pacific Division right now.
That's not low-key at all. That is huge surprise. That is what's going on.
What from to bring up my favorite phrase, Tom, hockey is dumb.
Hockey is dumb. It really, and you know what's crazy about that Ducks team? They made a coaching change and they actually jettisoned some of their talent. But maybe like as Verbeek really kind of gets what he wants in Anaheim and maybe with a new coach. And I mean, they have goaltending, which I think is always important. I think Dostal is awesome. Maybe Anaheim's a lot better than anyone gave him credit for.
I mean, here is some extra little food for thought. Remember who the top two, like some of the top two odds, like best odds for the Jack Adams Trophy were preseason. It was Andre Tourigny and Joel Quenneville.
Yep. And I mean, look, Quenneville won 3 cups as a coach.
Yes, he did.
It's hard to ignore what he is capable of getting out of a team. Although, and look, there's a million ways you can argue that. You could say, well, he had Kane and Taves and Sharp and Hossa and Heath and Seabrook. Yes, he did. He had a lot of talent on that team. But maybe that is the thing, is the Ducks have that talent, but they hadn't had the coach to bring the results.
He knows how to use the talent.
Right. So, I mean, whether you think Quenneville should be coaching or not, he is. And he's getting the results in Anaheim. It's so backwards right now, even to look at the East. You know who's leading in the wild card is Columbus. Okay, well, they just missed the wild card last year. That's fine. But, Pittsburgh is off to an 8-3-2 start. They were supposed to be terrible. The Canadians weren't supposed to arrive yet, and they're leading the Atlantic. The New Jersey Devils, I think, largely underachieved last year, but I didn't think they were first place in the Metro this year, yet there they are.
They had a really hot start too, and then they started losing games.
It's a weird hockey verse right now, Robyn. It really is. But the Central, and this is why it's good, because Utah has taken advantage of it. That's the other thing that I think is important to underscore here. Utah has taken advantage of it early, and they need to continue to take advantage of it.
Yeah, this, some people might say, okay, this is an Eastern swing. It might not matter as much versus when you're playing against, your own division, of course. But at the same time, consistency is key, right? We want to see the Mammoth keep playing their game. I'm going to reiterate that. It's keep playing their game. Right. Because if a team forces them to play anything otherwise, and I'm talking about the Edmonton game, Edmonton forced the Mammoth out of their game, and that's what caused them to start chasing. As long as the Mammoth play their game, they can win a lot more games.
I agree. They can do it, but they have to do it.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yes, and it's a young team, but it's no longer going to be the excuse because they are no longer among the youngest teams because it's getting older.
That is correct. Yep. So, it's going to be an interesting and fun year, but this road trip is huge. It's important to get off on the right skate against Buffalo, back-to-back with Toronto. So, Robyn, looking at this trip, I mean, 4 really tough opponents, 2 back-to-backs. I feel like 2-2 is a good mark. I feel like if they go 500 on this trip, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I'm trying to think in my head based off the opponents. I feel like 2-2, I think with, let's say, like 2-1-1, I feel like I'd be happy.
The surprise wins for me would be Toronto and Montreal.
Yeah.
They could get, and look, to hit your 2-1-1 mark, just take Toronto to overtime. I think, look, do not underestimate Montreal. I've been watching pretty much every team in the league as much as I can. They are one of the best, most disciplined teams right now. They are playing their system. All 4 lines are going. They have solid D. They're getting very good goaltending. It's really hard to look past Montreal.
I also want to mention real quick, not in the Spunkles Hockey League, but in another fantasy hockey league that I am in, I have Montembeau as one of my goalies.
I actually have the other half of that tandem. So, Robyn, you and I are silently hoping that a different goaltender emerges for Montreal in our fantasy teams, because right now they're on a pretty steady rotation. So I don't even know that far ahead who Utah would see, but either way, they have 2 very good goalies.
Speaking of Spunkles Hockey League, I'm still undefeated, by the way.
Really?
Yep, I am 4-0.
Nice.
And there's only 2 people who are undefeated, by the way. Maybe I didn't mention that last week. There were only 2 players in our 16-team league who are undefeated.
My team's starting to put it together. You're going to feel pretty good.
I know.
And
I know someone out there was like, the commissioner undefeated? Is this a coincidence? I'm just that. Hey, I called it a challenge for a reason.
Yeah.
You got to get some serious skill to be able to beat me.
That's all right. The co-commissioner gave one away a couple weeks ago, so that's all right. It happens. But yeah, believe me, we'll drop some updates in on Sparkles Hockey League, and I will absolutely gloat when I win the whole thing. So,
in a few weeks from now, I forget how many weeks we're going to be. I think maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks away. Tom and I are against each other. So then that's when the talk will begin.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. We'll be watching my key 3 players lined up on IR somehow, because that's just how the cookie crumbles. But
everything's been looking good for me so far. So
good. My team is not healthy. So, all right. Speaking of healthy, hopefully the Mammoth are able to stay healthy throughout this road trip, because that's going to be another big consideration for them. But honestly, I am actually really looking forward to the Buffalo game because of the storylines of the Peterka-Doan-Kesselring, all of that. I think it'd be cool if JJ Peterka lit it up. So,
wouldn't that be nice?
Looking forward to seeing that one. So let us know what your thoughts are, what you think about the road trip, how the Mammoth are going to come out on this one. And we'll be right back at you again on Wednesday, breaking down that Sabres game, and of course, immediately previewing Toronto on the back-to-back. So, Robyn, if people want to reach out to us, where can they find us?
Yeah, they can find us about everywhere on social media, primarily active over on Twitter/X at Locked On Mammoth. That's at Locked On Mammoth. And you can find me personally also there. I'm active there most of the time at Robyn_Leaño.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Tom Talks and on Twitter at Callahan on Air. So thanks for joining us. As always, everybody, we very much appreciate you being here and being a part of Locked On Mammoth.